नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् शृण्वतां स्वकतः कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयन्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विदुनोति श्रुतिसतां नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकीः. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, Verse 5. भद्रम् उक्तं भागवत उत्तमश्लोकस्य श्रीमाचरणारविन्दमकरन्दरास आविष्टचेतसो भगवत परमहंसदैत्य कथां किञ्चिद् अन्तरय विहतं स्वां शिवात्मां पादवीं न प्रयेण हिन्वन्ति. Translation. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, "What you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent, transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired." Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Sukadeva Goswami accepted both of the king's propositions that a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. Although accepting both these statements, Sukadeva Goswami qualified them by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may sometimes be influenced by impediments, but he still does not give up his exalted devotional position. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there are two kinds of impediments to devotional service. The first is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. This is called Vaishnava Aparad. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnava Aparad, which is described as the mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, it destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aparada is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being. Thus, Vaishnava Aparad is one kind of impediment to devotional service. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were formerly Jaya and Vijaya, the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha, but by the desire of the Lord, they became his enemies for 3 lives. Thus, the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. But in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. Following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhu and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life. But this did not mean he lost his position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. Because the material world is full of obstructions to advancement in Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments. Yet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declares in Bhagavad Gita 9.31, Kaunteya pratijanahi na me bhakta pranashyati. One has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. In this verse, the word Shivatmam is very significant. Shivatmam means the most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that a devotee cannot be lost under any circumstances. This is described in Srimad Bhagavad Gita by the Lord Himself. Partha naiveha namutra vinashaha tasya vidyate. My dear Arjuna, for a devotee, there is no question of being lost, either in this life or in the next. Bhagavad Gita 6.40. In Bhagavad Gita 6.43, the Lord clearly explains how this is so. तत्र तं बुद्धि संयोगं लभेत पूर्वदेहिकं यथा ते च तथा भूय समिशुद्धौ कुरु नन्दन. By the order of the Lord, a perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world like an ordinary human being. Because of his previous practice, such a perfect devotee naturally becomes attached to devotional service, apparently without cause. Despite all kinds of impediments due to surrounding circumstances, he automatically perseveres in devotional service and gradually advances until he once again becomes perfect. Bilva Mangala Thakur had been an advanced devotee in his previous life, but in his next life he became greatly fallen and was attached to a prostitute. Suddenly, however, his entire behavior was changed by the words of the very prostitute who had so much attracted him, and he became a great devotee. In the lives of exalted devotees, there are many such instances proving that once one has taken to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. Kaunteya pratijanahi na me bhaktya pranashyati. The fact is, however, that one becomes a devotee when he is completely freed from all reactions to sinful life. As Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 7.28, Esham tva antagatam papam jnanam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dhrida vritaha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. On the other hand, as Prahlad Maharaj said, Matirna Krishne Partha Svato Va Mitobhipadyate Griha Vritanam. A person who is too attached to materialistic family life, home, family, wife, children, and so on, cannot develop Krishna consciousness. These apparent contradictions are resolved in the life of a devotee by the grace of the Supreme Lord, and therefore a devotee is never bereft of his position on the path of liberation, which is described in this verse as Shivatmam Padavim. End of purport. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself by reading the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Please forgive me for any shortcomings and if any own interpretations are made. So, in today's verse, we see that King Parikshit has raised a question to Sukdeva Goswami as he is very confused about King Priyavarta's behavior. And he imposes questions to Sukdeva Goswami to understand why King, being a very pure devotee, still wanted to enjoy the household life, knowingly it will lead to a bondage of fruitive activities. This is one of the important questions raised by King Parikshit, which is also a question from a common man and for devotees who have just treaded their path in spiritualism. This type of questions raised and the answer to such questions given by the exalted devotees will definitely help and guide the aspiring devotees to understand and continue their journey in the devotional path. It is easy for all who are in the path of devotion to be convoluted without not having a proper understanding. Devotional activity is very subjective and it varies from person to person. But with proper understanding of the Shastra and under the guidance of a spiritual master, even one has to work on the platform of the materialistic life but will not be carried away by it and yet continues to serve the Lord. It is very usual for the discipline set forth over the period of time becomes only ritualistic unless it is implemented with the real essence but not merely as ritualistic. To this question of Parikshit is the answer in today's verse explained by Sukdeva Goswami. As per Sukdeva Goswami and other exalted sages, there are two possibilities for the king Parivarta situation. Devotees are encountered with impediments in their journey. And one possible cause could be King Parivarta may be acting due to his past karma or offenses committed against Vaishnava, which is compared to mad elephant, which destroys everything and is one of the biggest offense declared by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and warned everyone to be aware of not committing the Vaishnava aparadhas. The second possibility could be the Lord Himself brings this impediment in the devoted life in order to fulfill His desire or to perform the pastime, where in this case Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu's example has been given. It is also to be understood that if a devotee is engaged in household, thus, but this does not mean that he has lost his position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. So we have to understand that since Krishna is eternal, the devotional service to Krishna also is eternal. Just the presence of sunlight cannot entertain darkness. Similarly, the devotional service of Krishna cannot be lost for good in any devotee's life. Material world itself is an impediment and which is full of miseries and anxieties as mentioned by Krishna. The material world described in Vedic philosophy, particularly in the Bhagavad Gita 8.15, is a place of suffering, dukkhalayam, and impermanence, characterized by the unavoidable miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. It is a realm where souls, influenced by illusions, experience dualities like pleasure and pain, leading to constant struggle and danger. Because the material world is full of obstructions to advancement in Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments. Yet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in Bhagavad Gita said and declared boldly, O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Having said that, one cannot stop performing their dharma or duties thinking it is against a devotional service. Just like King Priyavarta, who did not want to rule as he was engaged in devotional service, but as a son, he has to equally follow his father's order. There is no different to Arjuna's delusion, where he did not want to fight just because he had to fight against his own masters, kingsmen, and relatives. Let's look into a different perspective. If everyone has to engage in devotional service, then everybody has to only perform devotional service and no other acts to be performed. The whole point to be grasped here is it is not the act what we perform. It is our mind attachment and desiring the fruitive results to be checked, not the act to be abandoned. All cannot be sannyasi, and it is also equally true that only sannyasis are not devotees. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.7, Krishna instructs Arjuna to keep your mind attached to me and do your worldly duty with your body. This principle, known as Karma Yoga, means acting without desiring the fruits of actions, offering all duties to God, and maintaining constant mindfulness of the divine while performing or living in the world. The mind stays attached to God while the body engages in the necessary work, ensuring that the worldly actions do not cause karmic bondage and surrendering one's results. One should work without being anxious about outcomes or considering themselves the sole cause of success, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.47. Devotional focus, like Krishna urges to engage your mind, always thinking of Him, become my devotee, offer obeisance to me, and worship me. The goal is to perform one's prescribed duties as a form of worship, purifying the mind and leading to peace. This approach reconciles spiritual life with material responsibilities, allowing individuals to live in the world without being affected by it. So I stop here for today's